to be the liar. You want to help to mind your family. You want to help your man financially. But nowadays it's really very hard to get a job as a girl in Trinidad. You're looking now to find something to do. You meet a boss man who promised to help you. But when the man lay down the condition, it's nothing else but humiliation. They want to see your whole anatomy. They want to see where your doctor never see. They want to do what your husband never do. Still you will know if that scamp will hire you. Well, it is all this humiliation to get a job these days as a woman. Brother, they could keep their money, my honey, and die with my dignity. Not at all. Be bombarded. Oh, yeah, yeah. Ba-da-ba-dum, be-bum-de-dum-de-day, ba-ba-da-bye. Some of them don't pack up already, yet they sit down, waiting like Mappy, using the power of the cash and position, waiting to abuse and exploit every woman. To get the work you have to go out of bed with him. Become his slave, his second wife and deputy. And as the next woman come on the line, he start to tell you you ain't good, you can't whine. They want to see you in some fancy pose. Want to see how you look without your clothes. They want you cock up like a bloody acrobat. The wife at home, they can't have she to do that. So before I had to lick down somebody, or cause another police come for me, tell them they could keep their money, I go keep my money and die with my dignity. I'm born with it. Looking for work, you might bounce up a fellow who might be looking quite handsome and macho. You tell yourself you want to work with him, so you decide you go try a ratchet fee. But when you're done, it's then you get to know he wife leave him and gone long time ago. With all the cash he have, he's a failure. The man ain't nothing but a blinking sukuya. He want to feel up your navel and your breast. He want to see if you are loader on your chest. The things he want to do you with his hand, like if he's searching to find the promised land. I am a woman, I don't make any style. Before I slap you and you die of heart attack. Glasses, keep your money. Keep my honey and die with my dignity. It have a lot of women just like me who might be not well off financially. You need a job and you really need it bad. A man decide to help you must feel glad. But if you value yourself as a woman, you will demand respect from the vagabond. Stand up to them, let them know the truth. It's what you want to end up blinking prostitute. You have a mole on your back, they want to see. They want to see if you have marks on your belly. They want to know how much man you had before, and if you're strong enough to take any more. I have my pride and I have my ambition. I want to hold my head up high as a woman. So tell them they could keep their money, I will keep my money and die with my dignity. Looking for work, you might bounce up a fellow who might be looking quite handsome and macho. You tell yourself you want to work with him, so you decide you go try a ratchet feet. But when you're done, it's then you get to know he wife leave him and gone long time ago. With all the cash he have, he's a failure. The man ain't nothing but a blinking sukuya. He want to feel up your navel and your breast. He want to see if you are loader on your chest. The things he want to do you with his hand. Like if he's searching to find the promised land. I am a woman, I don't make any skylark. Before I slap you and you die of heart attack. Glasses, keep your money.
Keep my honey and die with my dignity.
It have a lot of women just like me who might be not well off financially. You need a job and you really need it bad. A manly side to help you must feel glad. But if you value yourself as a woman, you will demand respect from the vagabond. Stand up to them, let them know the truth. It's what you want to end up blinking prostitute. You have a mole on your back, they want to see. They want to see if you have marks on your belly. They want to know how much man you had before. And if you're strong enough to take any more. I have my pride and I have my ambition. I want to hold my head up high as a woman. So tell them they could keep their money, I will keep my
money and die with my dignity.
Oh, yes. Good evening and welcome to Politics 101 on Monday night. Monday for some of you, late Monday night for others, and Monday afternoon for some of you. To all my good friends in places like Arizona, good afternoon, still afternoon here. Welcome to Politics 101. Singing Sandra, Die With My Dignity. Of course, over the weekend on March 8th, we observe International Women's Day. So, yes, Ivor. Sukuya is the Trinidad word for Olai. Yes, International Women's Day, Singing Sandra, Die With My Dignity. One of the classics of Caribbean music, not just calypso, one of the classics of Caribbean music. A real statement about feminism, especially Caribbean feminism. Because you know the feminist story, you know, when white people talk about feminism, it's a different thing from when Black women or Indian women, Caribbean women talk about feminism, you know, Amerindian women. Not all women are the same. You know, my friend and comrade and I used to say, the mistress who used to ring the bell, you know, ring the bell when she want the maid to bring the first course. Then when the maid carried it, played them, and so she ring the bell for this maid to bring in a second course. She says there are two different kind of feminism. There may be what you call racial feminism, but there's also class feminism. And Singing Sandra, they were talking more about class, but also about racial feminism, the way in which women are exploited in our society for jobs and other things. We have had our fair share in Guyana of this government and its abuse of women, whether it's, calling them names, Amerindian women, calling them names in parliament, hookers, whether it's abusing women physically, as was the case of Tabitha Sarabo, Hali, whether it's telling women about dildo, Indian women. So African women, Amerindian women, East Indian women, they've all been abused in Parliament. And of course, it's not just a misplaced male chauvinism, but it's a male control and feminism, chauvinism that is part of the control of our society that we are seeing before our very faces. International Women's Day, happy International Women's Day to all our women, whether in Guyana or the wider Caribbean or the world at large. Without our women, I don't know where we would have been. So many of us have been raised primarily by women. I'm a good example of that. Raised by women, and all the values that we take with us later on in life, we get them from women. I didn't get my what some of you may call toughness from being raised by a male. There was no male in the house. I was raised by women, and women in the house, women in the yard, women in the neighborhood, women in the village. And to this day, I continue to be raised by women. And so we have to always give praises to our women. Again, happy International Women's Day. Well, tonight we are going to continue to have our discussion, and we are going to talk a few things. Our guest is Tacuma Ogunseye, and we are almost ready for Brother Tacuma. Brother Tacuma, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Hines, and good evening to your viewers. And I wish to join you to say Happy International Women's Day to the women of the world, and to say, as an African person and who believe in the African worldview, there will be no continuation of the human species without the women. And for us as Africans, we had always held our women in the highest possible esteem and have given them equality. To the extent that our women lost equality, it is due to conquest, whether it is European conquest, Arab conquest, but it is always due to conquest. Nowhere on the continent where the indigenous philosophy holds that African women ever lost the equality.
And I know, Brother Ogunseye, that you were raised by a woman, your mother. I know even as an adult, you were still your mother's son and very close to your mother. I mean, your profession as a vendor, you were following the footsteps of your mother. When you were here last, it was the day, I think, Republic Day. You were reflecting on the death of your mother.
Yeah.
Your comments.
Yeah, that is totally true. I mean, I grew up in a single parent family, and my mother, struggled with us, myself and my late sister. And whatever we have become as persons, it is due to the sacrifices and the values that our mother, in the main, instilling us at a very early age. And it's a long story. I remember, I'm going to share part of it, because sometimes we need to understand these things, because it helps to demonstrate sometimes our social and political conviction. My mother always told us that when herself and my father separated, things got so bad with her that one evening she took myself and my sister to the seawall, and she was contemplating committing suicide to jump overboard. And she said a Portuguese woman came up and approached her and asked her, what's the problem? And she explained. And that Portuguese woman um, gave her employment as a maid in her home. And that, in a real way, was probably responsible for me being here tonight to speak to you. So, this is the background to which I came from. And that is why in my politics, I can't be racial. I have given the example when I was in secondary school, coming from primary school, coming from St. Ambrose Anglican School in we used to cut across all those grounds, from transport ground right through, coming to Kitty. And one afternoon, we used to play this thing. We would jump over the fence, we pick a whip and beat the others. And that particular afternoon, when I jumped the fence, a paling stave went into my foot. And I got a huge cut. It's the first time I really see a cut like a mouth. And I was trying to get myself to the Kitty market. And many people in car, and I remember this as a youngster, black people in car pull up, watch me, skin their face and drive away. And the Indian man on a Big Ben bicycle, we call it Big Ben bicycle those days, and he said, boy, you can't, we're going. I said, try and make it to the market. But he said, you can't make it to the market. And he put me on a cycle and he rode me to Georgetown Hospital. I got 29 or 39 stitches. I can't remember which is 29 or 39. And I was admitted and I was in hospital for about 2-3 weeks. And that is responsible for me being alive today. So, when people talk about race and racism, I watch them and I feel so disgusted, because these are people who, they know nothing about you fundamentally, right? They don't even understand your politics, much as your private life and your evolution, And on this, I'm glad to speak on these two matters, in relationship to International Women's Day.
And thank you very much for those sentiments. As viewers here would know that I also, we share that in common. My auntie worked as a maid in Portuguese people kitchen, and very nice people, the Pereiras from Buxton. And they were so nice to us, nice to her, but there was the class thing that weighed heavily on my aunt's mind, and she was very clear when she got home to say to us, I am working in these people's kitchen. They're nice to us, but I would prefer to do something else. But I'm doing that to take care of you all, to help take care of you all. But I do not want any of you to work in anybody's kitchen. And the rest is, of course, history. Talking about race, let's listen to this clip and then get your thoughts on the other side.
What they should have done, and they now want to persuade the youngsters in Guyana to do that. And unfortunately, it's fertile ground. It's easy to convince the unlettered and the uneducated that the reason their life is bad is because of race. Has nothing to do that they wouldn't go to school. Has nothing to do with they wouldn't get up and go to work. It is because of their race. Somebody has got to stop people like them from trying to influence children.
That was Sanjeev Dattadin, Brother Ogun, on the Freddie Kissoon show last Wednesday at Everest Sports Club. And Freddie took the show there, and he said at the beginning of the show that we are here at Everest Sports Club, the former Indian Sports Club. And there he was with them three Indian men, an Amerindian gentleman, the leader of Anog, and they were there to denounce Clive Thomas and myself. And in the process of denunciation came those words from Sanjeev Dattadin, who is a member of parliament of the PPP. Your comments.
The ancestors have a way of working, the influences in ways where some people don't understand. And I think that it's a good thing that they're revealing themselves in ways which cannot be defended. And it is hard for anyone listening to that tape, listening to the way Kisun introduced the program. You must ask yourself, how is it these three big men, all of them supposed to be fairly intelligent men, why they allow themselves to be used in that way if they have any iota of firstly self-respect, and if they have any iota of concern for racial harmony in the country. Each of them must have known, because once Kisun asked them to go to Everest to stage the show, which is not the regular place where the show is being staged. The common sense would say that you will ask, why Everest? So I'm convinced it was a well thought out project. It wasn't by accident. And all four of the participants knew what they went there to do. And all four of them are guilty of the crime that they commit against African young people and young people in general. Now, in my long history of Guyanese politics, I cannot remember any political activist across race and across party ever went to the lengths that Kisun is allowed to go in promoting his filth, which he is pretending to be some concern for national unity and racial tolerance, when it is the very opposite he is doing. And I think that it demonstrates a profound shift in Guyana as it relates to the racial competition in the political space. We are not anymore dealing with the old racial political antagonisms of the 60s and the 70s and even the 80s. We are dealing now with a qualitatively different kind of racism and a different type of racial politics, which is more negative, potentially more dangerous, and it will have consequences. If it continues, it will have serious consequences. And I am predicting that Freddie will not last as long as the years he did in Kaishore News. He's not going to last those years in Chronicle. And I'm certain sooner or later, even the PPP will be forced to act against him because of his excesses. And it will become a point that they can't tolerate Kisun's behavior and to maintain in the eyes of the world any resemblance of having any real interest in any one Guyana and anything about real national unity. His excesses is unprecedented. And I think it represents the degree to which we have slid on the question of political culture and political morality and race relations in Guyana. We are the lowest possible level.
We are the lowest possible level. And as you remember, Brother Tacuma, shortly after the 2020 election, a couple of days, the Friday after the election, there were protests in three Indian Guyanese communities, Cotton Tree, Lusiknan, and Bad Settlement. And we had the terrible sight of protesters chasing policemen and women, injuring one policewoman, and stoning a vehicle, a bus that was taking school children, mainly African Guyanese children. And for the last 5 years, nobody talked about that. People talk about all the protests that PNC did and black people did back in the 90s and the 60s, and it's as if that didn't happen. And then all of a sudden, Mr. Jack Dio, at his last press conference, uttered these words.
Years ahead, we had massive protests at Lusiknan, in Cotton Tree, and at Bushlaw. And a number of people, particularly young people, came out because they had been following the events of the previous 4 days, and they saw what was taking place. That right before our eyes, APNU was trying to steal the elections through fraudulent declarations, and they were going to have none of it. And the attempt to steal the election was so clumsy. You'd recall Mingo's actions, Lowenfield's action, and then even the declaration, the fraudulent declaration, which was signed by Mingo, but only required the signature of the RO, had on that document, the declaration form, the signature of Valder Lawrence too. Now, where there is no requirement for a political party to sign this declaration, this is an official document of GCOM, where there is no room for signature from any party. Only the RO signature should have been there, but Valder Lawrence countersigned the official declaration. So, as I said before, it was a clumsy attempt, but a pernicious attempt to steal the elections. And it foretold a lot of danger for this country had they succeeded. So people had seen this. It was playing out in the newspapers and the public domain, and they decided to come on the streets to have none of it. And among those who came on the street were a significant number of young people, young men and women, whose future was at stake. And they were met with pellets by an order from the administration at that time, the PNC, to fire into the crowds. People who would normally, these were peaceful protesters who were protesting, which is their democratic right to protest, and were protesting for a particular cause. They were met with pellets. And I spoke earlier about how we found out.
So, Tacuma, there we have it. Jagdio is saying he's first admitting that there were protests when people had been quiet about it all these years. But more than that, he frames the protests as peaceful. No buses were stoned, Policemen and women were not beaten. These people were shot at with pellets by the order of the government. Please address that, if you will, what I may call rewriting of history.
It is a consistent narrative developed by the PPP and sections of the Indian rights activists to deem every protest by African people as an expression of violence and deliberate and willful attack on Indians. And they have pushed things to a point that they don't even speak about Indian protests, like Indians never protest, and that all the protests in the history of the country have been African protests. And to the extent that they concede Indian protests, they always try to create the impression that these protesters have been peaceful, expressions, okay? But the truth is the truth. It is no secret. And this is where we have to face the potential political danger in this country. There's one thing when I, Ogunseye, or you, David Hines, speak on political issues, and even if we misrepresent issues deliberately, it can't carry the same weight and has the same consequences as when somebody like the vice president or the president or the attorney general, people in power, speak and narrate on these matters. It is 100 times more important than when an ordinary citizen without power narrate on these matters. And when Jagdeo could watch the world, because you're not watching now because of technology, that protest anybody could find it on the web. And when he could watch the country, the reason in the world, and try to rewrite history in that way, it speaks volumes. But there is a deeper, in my mind, there's a deeper psychological aspect of this problem. It's not simply political. I think it have gone beyond political and it is deep-rooted psychologically, where the Indian political elite don't believe that Africans have equal rights as Indians. And what is bad for Africans, okay, is good for Indians. So it is bad for Africans to attack police if they attack police. But when Indians attack police, it doesn't exist. It never happened. So we are having clear double standards on these important matters. And they believe that what you say or what I say is what is shaping the African masses' attitude to them and the political engagement in the country. If I die tomorrow, or you die tomorrow, the problem with them and African community remain the same. Because to a great extent, the African view of their condition is determined by their understanding of the PPP use of power and governance and how the PPP see them. So even if David Hines and Ogunseye disappear from the equation, they banish me, or fate will have it, the ancestors call us, say you all work hard enough, time to go and rest. The conditions and the struggle of the African people against the PPP will continue because it is a reflection of objective reality. And no amount of rewriting history by Jagdeo and company to say that Indian protests didn't have any elements of violence can't change objective reality. It is already there. The evidence is there. But what is more important is that the time that they're repeating it, and they're repeating it at a point in time when, on the one hand, they're accusing us in this election period of whipping up racial sentiments and building up politics of race, and they don't understand. Jagdeo them plain, they don't understand, because I think they very really understand that they is doing 10 times worse than us, because they're setting the stage for Indian intolerance in the political equation and creating, a false belief that Indians could do as they please, and they will get away with it because the PPP could rewrite history, and the PPP could protect any behavior that is negative by the Indian community. I think it's a dangerous philosophy. It's a dangerous political practice.
Dangerous philosophy, dangerous political practice. And just in case Mr. Jagdeo has been trying to hide
the violent
truth,
actions of the People's Progressive Party supporters at Bath Settlement has led to the injury of 4 school children and police officers. Here is that report.
Bath Settlement on the west coast of Berbice has seen violent protesting by supporters of the PPP following Thursday's declaration of regional elections for District 4. A school bus transporting children that attended school in Belladrum was attacked, with a number of children injured. Friday's unrest saw blocking and burning of roads, destruction to public property, and the assault on police officers, most notably with bottles and other projectiles. The violent protesters have also blocked traffic in a number of areas, preventing citizens from going about their daily activities. Luzignan on the east coast of Demerara saw a larger number of PPP supporters protesting, causing unrest beginning Friday morning. It is only after a prolonged period did one member of the opposition address the violent protests, subtly asking protesters to keep the peace. At 4 p.m., well beyond the period of violent protests, the leader of the opposition issued a message to the supporters. On Thursday, leaders of the PPP on several occasions disrupted the work of GCOM at its command center. Shaquille Bourne, for Info.
Brother Ogunseye, our audience here tonight, that is the peaceful protest that Jagdeo referred to just now.
And it's well-organized protest. That is not spontaneous protest. So it's not spontaneous protest. There was protest that was well-planned, well administrated, and it comes directly from Freedom House. I think we know the country enough to know when we're dealing with spontaneous protests and when we're dealing with protests that is orchestrated, from the political parties to make a political point.
Brother Ogunseye,
that you were able to.
I thought you were finished.
It's good that you were able to reproduce the clip, because that's 1,000 words. We can't say anything better than that.
But for some of our supporters, some of them may be on this program, who may have missed that. Because when something is buried away from people's attention, when it's silence, people generally are not aware of it. And when you think that for the last 5 years, this government has been telling the opposition, telling opposition supporters, if you take to the streets, this is what would happen. In a sense, driving fear of protests into our community. When the other side was free to protest, not at any random time, but at that crucial time, and look at the nature of that protest. Yet this government may have succeeded in getting into the heads of some of our people, some of our supporters of all races, but African Guyanese in particular, that you can protest. What do you make of that?
No, it was. I've always been making the point that that was a well worked out design by the PPP and Indian rights activists. That one of the ways to compromise and to weaken African political standing in the equation is to take away from them, okay, the right to protest. And the PPP very early have put a very high price on protest. Jagdi was talking about shooting people with pellets. The PPP regime, having come to power from 1992, have the record of using the police in a way that tramples on the human rights of citizens and shot people not with pellets, more the introduction of actually shooting at workers in pellets in a big way began when the PP came to power and they were dealing with the public service strike, the nurses and so forth, and that strike. And from then onwards, there have been excessive use of the police force shooting into crowds with pellets. And we had the peaceful protests in Linden where they shot people not with pellets. In fact, they didn't start with pellets. They shot with live rounds. And this is the man, and his, and he party and he government, because whether he is the president, Ali the president, or Ramatar the president, Jagdi in charge. And this is the man who has the face, to face this nation and the world, and to speak on these matters, like if he and the PPP hands are clean, when the hands are laced with the blood of our people. And at no point in time in the political struggle of this country after independence that the security forces have shot at people engaging in protests using pellets and even using live rounds to the extent to which it was done under the PPP regime. The problem is that we in the African community, we sometimes do a disservice to ourselves because we sometimes demonstrate short memory. And it's part of our historical conditioning. And we don't keep crying on the abuses of persons and institutions have inflicted upon us the way in which other sections of the community do. And we create the impression that Africans have not suffered unparalleled brutality at the hands of the police and the security forces more than any other race in the country. And it is worse for us because a lot of that is our own children who carry the guns of the state inflicting wounds upon us. It's a double crisis for us. And we have to do two things. We have to ignore this deliberate attempt by the PPP and sections of the Indian rights activists to take away from us a very important weapon that we used throughout the colonial struggle to get independence and to win all of the advances that we won, to push the country forward. We did it through mass public protests. And that is an important political tool going forward. And as an African community, we have to resolve not to give that up. And I'm hoping that not only the African, and this is not so much a problem for the African masses, this more is a problem for the African political leadership and the African political elite, who seems to buy into this notion that because the PPP and Indian rights activists raised the bogeyman of African protests amongst the violence and willful attacks on Indians, then we should have no African protests. I think that if we continue along the road, we will play in the game they want us to play, and before long, we will find ourselves with new chains, okay, around our feet.
Yes, continue, Brother Ogunseye.
I finished at that point there.
New chains around our feet.
Yeah.
Let me just, and you raised an important point there. The important point of our short memories, And just a couple of weeks ago, after I made my statements here regarding the buying of votes by the PPP using Africans to buy votes, there was a hue and cry, big. Some of our people got into it, and even some of our people who said we stand with Dr. Hines, some said quietly Dr. Hines should not have used that language. And the PPP pitched it as language. They pitched it as we do not want people to join another party and all of that stuff. And that was a mere 2 weeks ago. And Jack Dio came out and said he would ban you and me, banish us from politics. That my comments were vile. And he was so torn up by it that he would banish us from Guyana and Guyanese politics. I want you to take a look at this, and then we'll talk about it on the next side. Okay. All right. Here we go. All right.
I think he is met Azruddin Mohammed on a few occasions. And I think he is a wannabe gangster who can string two coherent thoughts together. And if he had to confront APNU, he would shit a bucket load. I have met Azruddin Mohammed on a few occasions. And I think he is a wannabe gangster who can string two coherent thoughts together. And if he had to confront APNU, he would shit a bucket load. I have met Azruddin Mohammed on a few occasions. And I think he is a wannabe gangster who can string two coherent thoughts together. And if he had to confront APNU, he would shit a bucket load.
He would shit a bucket load. This is the man who said it was vile for me to say lick bottom Africans. Now he's talking about shitting bucket load. Where is Pandit Ubraj Narain? Where is James Bond? Where is Leonard Craig? Where is Figueroa? Where are all these people who talk? And where is Ravi Dev? Where is Freddie Kissoon? Who talk how vile I was to say lick bottom Africans? Here the man is talking about shit a bucket load on the national television. Different standards for different people. This is not 1 year after my statement. This is 1 week after. He sits there with a straight face and does it because in his head, we already forget about the double standards that only last week they were killing and banishing Hines for cussing. Your thoughts?
I think you're quite right. It demonstrates, while Jagdio's behavior is understandable given his political culture, what worries me is that the media, which pretend to be an objective media, generally is very quiet. They don't pick up on these things. But if it was you or I, they're to run with it. And this there's an anti-African attitude that has developed in this country that is beyond normal politics now. It become institutionalized. And it's dangerous because it has become socialized to an extent that even Africans, sometimes some Africans believe that what is happening to us is not serious because it becomes like a way of life. It happens every day, it becomes a way of life. So if Ogunseye or David Hines...
Ogunseye, you've touched on the heart. This go ahead, continue.
No, you continue. No, I was making the point that this has become an anti-African mentality that is beyond the normal political engagement. It has become part of a part of the national psychic. They have succeeded in making this anti-African mentality part of national psychic, and it's even affecting Africans because some Africans are buying into it to some extent, and it's because the media is predominantly dominated by people who are not Africans, and there is no effective mass media opposition, no significant African mass media to argue an opposite or an African narrative or to even to expose what is going on. And to the extent that it is being exposed, it is only recently because of the social media post-COVID that allow us to be more combative in fighting and exposing this institutionalization of anti-African ideology in the country. And if you were to take away the social media, if we didn't have social media the way it evolved, it would have been a million times worse because the conventional media is dominated by Indian interests. And even to the extent that they may want to be professional, their at base is so dependent upon government and the Indian private sector that objectively they find it difficulty to push back against these things. So whether it is by design or it is by opportunism or it is the logic of the circumstances, the fact is in Guyana today, anti-African narrative is well established. It is becoming part of the national psyche, and it has gone far above the historical political contestation that we grew up in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. We're getting closer and closer to Israel and apartheid South Africa. Where the state and those who control the state are able to systematically over time instill in the consciousness of the national spirit that a section of the country is less humans, than other sections. And that ideology is what allowed Israelis to kill Palestinians without any sense of human feelings. And it is the same mentality that is being practiced in Guyana, and it's the same mentality because it starts with ideology. It starts with those with power, whether it's economic and political power, systematically over a period of time instilling into the national consciousness, that sections of the community is less than human beings. And it created justification for barbaric behavior. And there is where we're going. And Africans have to push back against this thing very fast. This is why I keep saying we don't have a lot of time. I don't blame the Indian masses because the Indian masses are captive and they doesn't understand exactly what is being done in their name. But I think that the Indian ideological thinkers know what they're doing and they're consistently refashioning Guyana. You had an excellent program a few nights ago on how they're refashioning Guyana, that even if they lose power tomorrow, a certain logic will be well established. And to get back to the original thing about the anti-African mentality and the African doctrine that they're pushing in the country, I think it is clear, it is beyond doubt.
It is beyond doubt, Brother Tacuma Ogunseye here tonight, and we are talking through a number of issues. Very pertinent point here by Brother Ogunseye, the anti-African sentiment. David Hines just 2 weeks ago said something. Language, terrible, vile. Yes, he's not fit to be in politics. Indian leader said the same thing a week after. Silence. Nobody can hear it. Nobody can see it. Nobody can comment on it. God bless Brother Sherrod Duncan, who was able to cut it out and put it out there. But where are the others, including some of our own supporters who were quietly saying that, the language wasn't right? Well, there is Jack Dio using the same language and worse, and feels that he is entitled to it. Brother Ogunseye, one of the things that they said wrongly, that I am against people moving from one party and going to another party, and that my fire was against the right of association. Jack Dio again came down on that Hines and his ilk are against people joining the PPP. Take a listen to him 1 week later.
Harassing us and all of that because of the BAS anti-smuggling squad. And Chedi Jagan said, I'm grateful for your support. You've supported us well, but if you think I'll come into government to tolerate illegality and I will, and I'm paraphrasing, betray the interests of all the people who rely on the PPP, then you're totally wrong. You're totally wrong. So, a lot of those people who claim Chedi Jagan now, you notice it's always the crooks who always say something. Moses Nagamutu used to say that he was the blue-eye boy for Chedi Jagan. A blatant lie. Janet Jagan pointed this out. Chedi Jagan said, carried him up in some mountain in Region 9 and whispered to him that he'd be the next presidential candidate of the PPP. A blatant lie. Ramjatan loved Chedi Jagan after they both tried to destroy Chedi Jagan party and link up with the PNC and AFC. Destroy his party. Now I see this again. This is almost a precursor to everything. Everybody who wants to say anything about the PP, who's trying to shaft the PPP, comes over.
Brother Ogun, so this man who was cussing me just a few days ago and accusing me of not respecting people's right to association, here is the man cussing Ramjatan and Nagamutu for going to the PNC. Is he respecting their right of association there? Is that not another instance of double standards? Talk to us.
Yes. I mean, it speaks for itself, but it demonstrates the thinking of Jagdeo. That Jagdeo have worked himself up to a position that he and the PPP got some privileged position in the country, that they're running the place like if they are monarchs. So the right to the monarch is distinct from the right of the common people. We're not a republic, we are monarch. So the rulers could say what they want, and that go as law. But when anybody else say the same thing, they're subject, to condemnation, and they drag before the courts, and they feel the full force, of the power of the state. Now the WPF always, and he knows it, the WPF fought for the right to association in this country. You and your programs long before this recent controversy have been arguing and demonstrating respect for persons' right to join and support whatever political party they wish to support. That was never a matter of contestation. And Jagdeo and them knows that. They're not fighting over the right for persons to join the PP. That is not what they're really fighting over. They know very well what they're fighting. They're fighting, the inherent logic in your rebutting African persons who are prepared to work with the PPP deliberately in a hostile ways against the African interest of the African community, not simply the political interest of the PNC or the APMU. This is beyond party, because the PPP's line of march and the PPP game plan is not directed simply to engage in settling party scores in the traditional way. We want to get more votes than the PNC and to win elections and so forth. It is not simply a contestation of parties. It have long gone beyond that. The PPP is seeking to marginalize deliberately, destroy where possible the African community, because they believe that the African community is the only community that could put an end to their quest for domination. So they know what they're fighting. So they know that your remarks are not intended to address the rights of persons to shift loyalty, but it is directed at the behavior of these persons and these persons' willingness for self-interest to consciously work with the PPP to destroy not the APM or the PNC, but to destroy the African community and the generations of Africans to come. This is what is at stake. And this is what, okay, we have the right as African activists and African leaders to addressing our community. And as you quietly, you said it in a very forked way. You could go and join them. Gan, go on, join. Right? We in care, we do, you go and join them, providing you don't become slave catchers. You see, the slave catching part of the thing, as the slave catching part of the thing that they're interested in developing in the African community, where our people will sell our votes for a few cents, and in selling our votes, we actually buying, okay, our domination, permanent domination. And that is what is at stake here.
And there is no greater expert on vote buying than Jack Dio himself. Take a listen.
Be where the biggest threat comes from, but I don't know. He has a duty to do the public. It's sympathy they're looking for, as though he poses a threat to the People's Progressive Party. We have fought off people who are smarter and more well-resourced than he has been. Smarter by a million miles. Yes, go on. What was it? I forgot about that one.
Yeah, Dr. Jaja was asking if your parties are concerned about reports of what appears to be support buying by Azzuddin Mohammed during a visit to various communities. There are reports that in Linden, recently persons were required to sign a book pledging their electoral support for Mr. Mohammed before receiving financial assistance. Is your party concerned about this type of practice and it undermining the democratic process?
Even if they got to pledge support and all of that, it might be illegal, but with all of that, it doesn't bother me. I know, because you could easily in this country pay a few people, and there are lots of overhangs from the AFC and PNC in these communities that would take some money and bring a few people there. Not all the people who go there would ever support him. And the numbers are small, smarter and more well-resourced than he has been. Smarter by a million miles. Yes, go on. What was it? I forgot about that one.
Yeah, Dr. Jaja was asking if your parties are concerned about reports of what appears to be support buying by Azzuddin Mohammed during a visit to various communities. There are reports that in Linden, recently persons were required to sign a book pledging their electoral support for Mr. Mohammed before receiving financial assistance. Is your party concerned about this type of practice and it undermining the democratic process?
Even if they got to pledge support and all of that, it might be illegal, but with all of that, it doesn't bother me. I know, because you could easily in this country pay a few people, and there are lots of overhangs from the AFC and PNC in these communities that would take some money and bring a few people there. Not all the people who go.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
The
Well,
ancestors work magic.
the ancestors, I was just going to that. So vote buying is illegal, Ogun. Jack Dio knows that. That's one. Two, he knows that the method of buying votes in the African Guyanese community. And thirdly, note what he's saying and compare it with what Datadin said. Datadin said fertile ground. Jack Dio says it's easy these days to go and buy votes. Anyhow, let me hear you. My God, The ancestors really work with us. Go ahead, Brother Okun.
You see, I want to make the point that if anybody had any doubts about the contempt to which Jagdeo have for those Africans who, for whatever reason, choose to go over to the PPP in this present disposition, they should get some amount of sense. I don't want to get into name calling, but Jagdeo is very contemptuous here. He call them hangovers from the APMU, the AFC. That's the term he discusses citizens, you know. And he says, they're always there, willing to accept money and to go and do the slave catching. And the PPP, okay, is taking full advantage of that, not to win elections. And I want to mention this point because listen to Jagdeo there. Jagdeo is also saying that despite that, the majority Africans going to stay where they are. And he is very much aware that the slave catching project cannot deliver sufficient votes to the PPP to win any elections. So they are not dependent on the slave catching to win the elections. The slave catching has been the dressing to deal with the accusation that they are a racist party and that their policies are racist, and they want to demonstrate to the world that they have African support. So that is what this sojourn into the African community is about, not about the elections and winning votes. Is that the most difficult political challenge they face now is to live out the international recognition that they have been promoting an apartheid-like state in Guyana, tied to the ideology of Indian supremacy and racism. And what they have done from 92 to present is already done. And anytime there's any international mission from United Nations to study Guyana, the PPP have been in power from 92 to 2015, and from 2020 to the present. They are the party that fashion whatever Guyana becomes, basically. And to the extent that the country developed in a racial way, it falls at the door of the PPP. And is that what they're trying to cover up by mobilizing Africans so they could prevent these sophisticated photo opportunities and demonstration that the PPP is not simply an Indian party, but is an African, it has significant African support. Jagdeo is a very bold-faced political person, and he operates on the doctrine that if you tell a lie often enough, it becomes truth. I think Jagdeo is a disciple of that, that political logic. And regardless of the situation, once he believes a narrative suits his political purpose, he will repeat it with a plain face over and over again. And I think that we got to understand that given Jagdeo mental construct, I don't want to behave like I'm a psychiatrist, but given Jagdeo mental construct politically, he is not easily subject to change. You can't persuade Jagdeo through any civilized discourse to change his political behavior and his political style. Jagdeo political style and behavior will only be changed when you could change the objective conditions politically around him. And until the African community begins to fight back in a very tangible way, Jagdeo will continue to behave the way he behaves, and the issues that we are chronicling tonight will continue. So at the end of the day, all of this lies in our own hands. We could stop it tomorrow if we decide to stop it.
If you decide to stop it, and I notice some of you in the comment section are talking about Muhammad. This is not about Muhammad. This is not about Muhammad. The PPP will deal with the Muhammad issue in their own way. So you all don't get excited about this Muhammad story. The message that is coming through there is about how he feels and how they feel about African people. He's saying, we know what Muhammad doing because we just do the same thing. What Muhammad is doing is illegal, but we just do it. So it's not illegal when we do it. He's saying there that they're always black slave catchers. He's saying David Hines was right, but I couldn't tell he right. I had to tell you he wrong, but David Hines is right. We know where to find the slave catchers. They're there. This, comrades, sisters and brothers, this is not about Muhammad. The PPP and Muhammad, they will settle their story in time to come. You all don't get hung up on that thing. Right? Jack Joe wasn't talking to Muhammad there or about Muhammad. Jack Joe was talking to black people about black people. And sometimes you all have to get off this simplistic thing. Looking for some Indian or Portuguese or white leader to come and save you all. Right? The man is sitting there and saying that black people are stupid. That they're going to go and catch their own people and hand them over to Indian leaders, whether it be me or Muhammad. That's what he's saying there. And you all come off this thing about PPP fighting Muhammad. Even if that is true, that's not your business. Your business is about how you all, whether it's Muhammad or Jack Dio, are sitting ducks for a certain kind of politics. Please, you all get off that thing. Brother Ogunseye, as we come to a close, did I overspeak there?
No, I think you're quite correct. You see, it is the simplicity, the political we're suffering from among our constituents. And I don't want to sound like I'm being critical of the PNC, but the PNC has been the major political party in the African community for umpteen time. And they have developed a kind of simplistic politics among their support base. And I've got to deal with this every single day. And I have said on these programs, African people could tell you, when Jack Dio changed his shirts. They're so preoccupied with Jack Dio. And they're not preoccupied with what is important. They could stop Jack Dio tomorrow. But the political culture is so simplistic that it points to the obvious. And the subtleties and the complexity of the politics, is missed. And that's what you're seeing here with the Muhammad thing, is that they're not seeing the real underlying message in the political praxis of Jack Dio. Now, I don't want to spend time on the Muhammad thing. If Jack Dio make it very clear, if he had to make a choice between the survival of his government and Muhammad, he know what he can do. He can tell the Americans come and take Muhammad. End the story. End the story. Jack Dio is very clear, but that's their problem. Because Muhammad has always been a loyal supporter of the PPP from time immemorial. And I don't want to spend too much time into that thing, that the play itself out. But a lot of African people, with our political simplicity, we're not schooled to dive beyond the obvious. Okay, to understand the political message and the political reality that is being played out before our face. We forget that a lot of real politics is done undercover, is done with deception. And the politics that you see obviously is about 40% in the politics, 60% in the politics is not that obvious that you have to struggle to understand. And it's there where we have a great deficiency. So we will get caught up and we will get sidetracked with Mohammed and the PPP conflict and ignore our own situation and waste our energies in areas where it doesn't matter, rather than to use those energies to organize our own liberation and our own salvation.
History is a great teacher, my brother. Look at somebody like Ralph Ramkoran, treated bad by the PPP, left the PPP, form another party. But when it matters, he defends the PPP all the time, all right? If the Mohammeds are carrying blows to the PPP, let them do it. You all stand back and let them fight among themselves. You think if Norton and me, or Norton and Nigel Hughes fighting, you see the PPP getting in between? No! The PPP is saying, let the fight and kill Mati. Let the fight and kill Mati politically. It's easier for we. So you all leave that Mohammed and PPP thing alone. Let that thing play itself out. All right? Jagdio is not stupid. He's in that statement. Let me repeat what he's saying. He's saying David Hines was right, but I couldn't tell David Hines he's right. There are indeed slave catchers. It's easy. They're there in the African community. They fall out with the PNC. They fall out with the FC. And they will go and round up people and bring them. What do you think they used to do in Africa? Go and round up people and bring them and sell them. That is what they used to do. And even when we came over and ran away from the plantations, others used to do that. Round us up and carry us back. And that is what Jagdo is saying. And he's saying that the thing is saying it's easy to do it now. Because they don't like work. They're uneducated. They're unlettered. And all you got to do is go and pint a couple $1,000 to them. And they will go and round up their own people to come. And their own people will come and bow down for that couple $1,000. That is what Jagdio is saying. And if you all don't understand that, then we deserve what we are getting. Brother Ogunseye, your closing thoughts.
I want to say that this program, I hope, will be viewed by a large audience, over time. Because I think we have, addressed some of the important issues confronting the African community. And I think that we have to try our best to, while we don't want to destroy party politics, we have to widen the horizon of our people politically by promoting community politics, as well as we promote the party politics. But we have done over excellent work on party politics and build party loyalty to the point that people don't even got to think. But there is some value in that, but there's also some negatives in it. Because when you find yourself in a certain situation like we find ourselves today, where African survival depends upon African political clarity, both short term, medium term, and long term. There's a great deficiency in our politics across board, from top to bottom. Anybody who believes that these elections are simply another election and doesn't understand that the upcoming elections will shape the future of Guyana for a very, very long time. And it is very questionable whether, if we allow it to happen, whether we could undo it. Very questionable. So what we are facing here is not a contest between the African Party and the PPP. It's a contest between the Indian political elite that have controlled the PPP and the destiny of the African community, and by extension, the destiny of Guyana. This is what this politics is about. And that is why the Freddie Kesson and company are so mad about us. Because the WPA have demonstrated we understand the real politics in the situation. And we are not fooled by the notion of elections. We know that this thing is far beyond elections. And we know that elections is not the totality of democracy. You know? So, in closing, I want to say that I'm appealing to our viewers to relook this program, because sometimes when you see a program live, you may miss some of the messaging. But I hope that people will replay this program and to pay attention to some of the undercurrents that we were able to ravel out and put in the open space that, to my mind, are important to the salvation of the African community and the salvation of Guyana.
Salvation of Guyana and the African community. But I'm going to say thank you very much. I too would like to urge our supporters to and all those who are watching this program to share it far and wide. Share it far and wide. Thank you very much, Brother Ogun. And to you, our audience, we continue to put a lot of store in you, because you are but a subset of the larger community. Without you, we can't do this. We cannot do this. And sometimes we have to do programs like this in order to bring the truth out. We don't have a media who will do it for us. If those statements made by Jack Dio, if they were made by Norton or Nigel Hughes or myself or Ogunseye, they would be all over the opposition media. And we would have been forced to respond to them. And some of our people may feel that they had to make excuses for us. That is how well oiled the PPP media outfit is. We do not own big media houses, and we depend on social media. And so we depend on you all to spread this word around. After all the noise, after all the condemnation, Jadio admitted last Thursday that I was right. I was right. When Jadio is ready to go after an Indian who is threatening to run for office, he go for the shit bucket. He condemned me for going for the shit bucket when Africans are threatening to derail the African community, but he goes to the shit bucket when an Indian is confronting them. You all have to understand the dynamics that we are dealing with here. Understand the dynamics. We are at a serious crossroad and we can't waver. We cannot waver. Pandit condemn me. Now they're calling Pandit name and saying Pandit take money from Mohammed. Figueroa condemn me. The next day, Jack Dio tell you he's stupid and condemn me. We cannot go down that road. They are always feel they can set traps for us. It is nauseating, the contempt these people have for African Guyanese. And it's equally nauseating that African Guyanese are not picking up on that and not recognizing, as Brother Ogunseye say, this thing is beyond an election, beyond PPP versus PNC. This thing is about the African Guyanese community. The goal thing, which we didn't talk about tonight, I spoke last week about it. We talked about it at our press conference this morning. You got the majority of those gold scholarships are going to black people, children. Get black people, children into scams. Because that's what the goal is turning out to be, a scam. Priya Manichan is not going to send our child to do no gold scholarship. The PPP are not going to send them children to do any gold scholarship. The gold scholarship is because in their eyes, black people like Stretch Rian. Here's a scholarship, and we're staying up for it. We haven't researched it. We haven't find out what the origins. We haven't know what due diligence was done. We haven't know if a pilot project was done. It's free. So we think black man like freeness, as they say. Teacher George Young used to say, black man too licorice. And those people are playing on that aspect of our outlook. That's what they are doing. They're using the weaknesses in our community in order to destroy us. Are there weaknesses in the Indian community? Yes. But you think the PNC can go into an Indian community, penetrate that community, and get Indians to go and catch Indians and bring them? Never. The PPP will not allow the PNC to go into their communities to exploit the weaknesses of Indian people. But our community is an open door. And it's an open door because we make it into an open door. That they can come in, as Jack Dio said, and find some AFC and PNC rejects and say, here, come. Here is some money. Go and catch some of you people and bring them. We're going to give them some money. We won't give them as much as you, but we're going to give them some. This is what we are dealing with. And the anger at me and Ogunseye and those of us in the WPA, some of us, Mark Benchop, Rick Football, the anger at us is that we are not hamstrung by the logic of election. Elections are important. I'm going to fight hard for us to win the elections. But this is beyond the election. The PPP wants to keep it at election, want to keep it about election. An election in which they are going to keep the rules in their favor. But this is more than election. And tonight, you all heard it there in their own words. What they think of you all. Uneducated, unlettered, lazy. You all are born slave catchers. In every community, they got you all there. They can come. When the praises are sung about this $100,000, and people are thankful for it, and they must be thankful for it. And in the process of expressing their thanks, they sometimes go overboard. And the PPP film them and put them on Facebook. Look how black people praising we for $100 of their own money. That's so stupid. That's what the PPP is saying. This money is their money. But look how they're praising we, like if we give them money. And they're laughing at our people. They're laughing at our people. So sisters and brothers, you all wake up. Wake up. I don't want to get into the Mohammed thing. I pay attention to it. I see the big cuss out at Lima Sands there in Essequibo. Let them fight their fight. You all have no business in it. Let them fight their fight. And we'll see where it goes. But don't want to put your life in the outcome of that fight. That is the mistake we are making. You heard Jack Joe say, Mohammed can't read and write. He can't string sentences together. It's not that they just say about black young people. So what he's doing is that in order to contend with Mohammed, he's blackening Mohammed. The fact of the matter, does Mohammed want to be blackened? And so we have to turn inwards and solve our own problems. And the enemy is not just at the gate. The enemy is among us. If in each community you get 2 slave catchers, that's enough. And our young people who are ambitious, who want to get on in life, as they must. When you're young, you ought to be ambitious and you ought to want to get on in life. Nothing is wrong with that. But we have to teach our young people that all skin teeth, na laugh. Not everything that they point in front of you is what it is. Is what it is. I know something about virtual teaching and learning. And that is the thing you just got planned for. At least 5 years pilot program, going through the thing before you implement it. They come into office and next year they come up with this goal thing. Virtual learning is not easy. Only for our people to find out that they're talking to robots rather than lecturers and scholars and professors. That is how they think about us. I go to sleep at night because I would say about 10 to 15, mainly school teachers, had asked my thoughts on the goal, and I told them, don't touch it. Do not touch it. And I didn't quite understand the politics of it. I understood the education imperatives of it. I know you cannot set up an online program like that in a year. You can't. And I told those people as my advice, don't touch it. And I'm glad I did. I can go to sleep. But they honestly feel they got us where we are. Pushed freeness in front of we. And we lap it up. I am not saying there are not weaknesses in the in the Indian community. They are. But our leaders can't go and explain that weakness. There are weaknesses in the Amerindian community, and we know that they're going there and exploit it. So I'm not saying that black people are the only group that got weaknesses. The other side got weaknesses too. They like money too. They like freeness too. But we can't get in there and exploit it in the way, because we got past the masjid, we got past the temple, we got past the PPP, we got past the thugs before we get to their masses. But in our situation, we churches give them a free pass. We political parties give them a free pass so they can come into our territory and do as they like. And when I sounded that warning a few weeks ago, is to say, at least one group of people, the Working People's Alliance, not giving you all a free pass. And that is what the anger was about. Thank you all again for staying with us. I'll see you all tomorrow. Dr. Henry Jeffrey is going to be here tomorrow. And you know, when Dr. Jeffrey come on, it's a lot of sparks flying. So until tomorrow night, same time, same place, another edition of Politics 101.